Hi, let me start off by welcoming you to another edition of Webby University. My name is David Michelle Davies. I'm the Executive Director of the Webby Awards. The Webby Awards, one of the things we're interested in is how people in the real world are actually using all the technology that is available to them today. So today's talk, what we're calling the cashless society, will not be just an exploration of technology's impact on commerce, but how it's changing something as fundamental as cash, people's attitudes towards it, how they use it, or in some cases don't use it. So here's a quick preview of the talk. I'll start off with a bit about the Webby Awards, just a minute or two, and then we'll jump right into the theory and practices of a cashless society. A bit about the Webbies. In its 16th year, the Webby Awards honors outstanding achievement on the internet, and it's judged by the International Academy of Digital Arts and Sciences. The Academy is a 1,000-person member organization with people in more than 30 countries. And because the internet is so diverse, making up work from filmmakers, from developers, from writers, marketers, engineers, designers, and so many other disciplines, we've taken a broad approach to the type of experts recruited to be Academy members. So while you'll find that the inventors of the mobile phone, of TCP/IP, the technology that makes the internet work, and hypertext are all members of the Academy, so is David Bowie and Arianna Huffington and Lisa Kudrow, as we think each has an important perspective on how the internet and music or politics or entertainment collide. This Academy honors a broad array of internet work, whether it be websites, where the Webby started nearly 16 years ago, or mobile and apps, which we started honoring in 2005. The Academy's mission is to honor the very best of the internet. Okay, so let's start talking about cash. One of the best parts about working with the Academy that sifts through these nearly 10,000 entries a year is we have a unique view into the current cultural impact of technology. How is it affecting real people and their behavior? So one thing we've been particularly interested in this past 12 months is how mobile technology has started to change the way that regular people buy things, both online and off. I think a good place to start this talk is to take a second and talk about cash and what cash is. Cash has always been about convenience, making it easier and faster to trade. And in fact, cash was invented so that instead of having to trade cows for wood or cows for stones, and thus needing to be able to travel with your cows or stones or wood great distances to meet other traders, ancient people could instead trade something much smaller, for instance, a shell. This cowrie shell is an early precursor to actual coins. And eventually governments and civil society came to play a role in giving this newfound form of convenience some authority in creating coins. This shekel is one of the first known coins that man traded. I show this evolution to illustrate a point, and that's that cash is always, like I said before, about convenience, about making it easier for people to trade with each other and to trade value with one another. That was the evolution of cash from ancient times to modern times, but how is cash evolving today? Well, when we think of one of the core innovators in the world of cash and payments, unsurprisingly, we think of Apple Computer. About 10 years ago, Apple started opening retail stores, and in typical Apple fashion, invested heavily in the concept of making shopping and buying a more streamlined experience, much as they did with the computers that they've made and become so popular. It's said that Steve Jobs disliked the typical consumer experience of picking up products from a shelf, waiting in line, and paying. He found it inelegant. And as we explore some of the ways technology is changing the world of cash today, we find a lot of these innovations to be derived from the work Apple has done in the retail environment during the past decade. One key thing that Apple did was invest heavily in something called point-of-sale technology, or POS. If you're an old Apple fanboy, you might recognize this first version of Apple's point-of-sale technology. The device made it so that Apple employees could be on the floor, bringing you items that you wanted to purchase and literally selling you the items in the same place. So you didn't have to take them off the shelf, go wait in line, and pay at a cash register. Now, the first one pictured here was flawed, but it made possible all sorts of important changes for Apple in ways you might not imagine. These devices are actually hooked up to Apple's supply chain in real time. What that means is that the factories in China that make MacBooks and iPods and iPhones are run based on the information collected on these devices. So if suddenly, for example, the pink color Nano becomes more popular and starts selling more quickly than the rest, almost in real time, the factories in China are alerted to this and start creating more pink Nanos as a response to the information. It's an incredible innovation for two reasons. First, for consumers, it means Apple is able to meet demands for its products in an unprecedented way. They don't need to guess how many pink nanos they will be needed. They can literally make them based on real-time consumer choices and trends in the marketplace. Second, though, and almost more important, it gives Apple the ability to cut down the supply chain to just days, meaning that Apple can keep very, very sparse amounts of inventory in its factory and thus be a very nimble and profitable manufacturer. The effect that this has had on their business is unprecedented. Consumers spend more money per square foot of space, and I actually suspect probably more money per minute, in Apple stores than in any other store in the world. Why? Well, it's because, back to Steve Jobs not liking that inelegant experience, they've used technology to enable convenience in their shopping experience. It's easy, it's fast, and it's fun to buy lots of expensive stuff in an Apple store. And by networking the information of what is purchased in real time all the way back to their customers in China, Apple is able to serve its customers in a really unprecedented and groundbreaking way. Next, we're going to explore how the expensive technology that transformed Apple's business 10 years ago is now available to most anyone and is transforming all sorts of business and payment behavior. Let's start with SMS. Even though it's a simple technology, it's a big part of how cash is being modernized in the developing world because it's so pervasive. A few quick facts. There are 5.3 billion mobile subscribers worldwide. That's nearly 77% of the global population. SMS, though, is still king of mobile. There was nearly 3 trillion text messages sent last year. So we're going to take a look at what is probably the most known and most popular version of SMS payments, M-Pesa. M-Pesa is basically a branchless banking service. It's a lot like Western Union. Money can be sent in the form of a code via SMS to a user's mobile phone. The user then takes the code to an M-Pesa location, often just a small shop or convenience store, and collects the money. It was originally used and created to facilitate microloan payments in countries like Kenya, where the lack of physical branches made it difficult to distribute money effectively across the country. In Kenya alone, there are 14 million subscribers and 28,000 M-Pesa locations. A fun fact about M-Pesa that really illustrates the effect and impact it can have. A few years ago, the Afghan police started using it to pay police salaries. So what they discovered by doing so is that in switching from cash payments to M-Pesa payments, was that nearly 10% of the force, the people who they were paying, were actually ghost officers or fictional people created by thieves to steal money from the government. So by transitioning away from cash and transitioning to M-Pesa, it helped eliminate a lot of corruption, which in turn raised salaries for actual legitimate officers. Now let's take a look at the type of impact the rise of smartphones is having. Before we get into that, when we think about the type of impact smartphones have, its important metric is how many people actually have smartphones. And here you can see they are becoming very popular, with smartphone usage on the rise over the past 12 months. And nearly in the US, over 50% of users between 18 and 44 now have smartphones. So this is becoming a pervasive technology that everybody is accessing and using. One of the first innovators in the space was Starbucks. Launched in 2010, the Starbucks app works a lot like a gift card. You spend money in the app, and then, using a QR code, you can redeem your money at Starbucks locations. Since 2010, there have been nearly 9 million Starbucks apps mobile transactions through this app. And every single month, more and more transactions are occurring. So this is not just a trend that started when it was launched, but something that has been building over time since 2010. There's now a whole host of products for mobile cashless transfers directly between people. Venmo is one of my favorites. You can actually transfer money using the app or just plain old SMS. You sign up for Venmo, agree to trust certain people, say your best friend, and then when you go out to dinner with each other, rather than exchange money at the end of the meal, you can literally text, "Pay Jeff $10 for dinner," and $10 will be sent to his account. It's really light, and there's a lot of fun in actually using it. Amex Serve is something similar, basically an American Express service that allows payments directly between people. And then finally, Level Up. It's a bit of a hybrid. Similar to Starbucks, you can pay for things at shops using a QR code. But what's interesting is the participating shops incentivize you to use the apps and use those QR codes in their store by giving discounts on your use. So you can actually go into Level Up and see which stores are offering discounts for coming to their store and using the Level Up app. Those are just a few. Others like Stamped, the recently announced Facebook, PayPal partnership, and of course Square are all changing people's behaviors and uses of cash, and we encourage you to check those out as well. This is a really neat one. So Koreans as a society work a lot. and they work more hours than most developed nations. And as a result, a lot of Koreans don't actually have a lot of time to go to their grocery store. So this Home Plus virtual store can be found right inside subway stations in Seoul. These are actual pictures of product made to look like a store. But instead of picking up the products and paying for them, you take out your smartphone and scan the products and pay for them through your phone, and later they're delivered to your home. Here's a similar example. This one actually happened in Prague, so it's not just the Koreans who are innovating in the space, but it's happening around the world. The Ample Hills Creamery in Brooklyn, New York, uses something called the ShopKeep app instead of a cash register to achieve a similar level of innovation that Apple has in its retail stores. By using this app, which is basically connected to a computer or an iPad, Ample Hills is able to track the spending habits and trends of its customers in real time, just like Apple is. Using the data, they can easily see when the busiest time for the store is, and which products are the most and least popular. And best part, the ShopKeep app and the iPad combined are about half the price of a traditional dumb cash register. So they get all the benefits of a computing platform, and it's much less expensive than that old style cash register. Okay, this is the last one. Cardcase is an app that lets you never take out your wallet when you're going to go buy something. Here you see a slide. This is our intern at the Webby Awards, Yoni, who tested this out for us. What he did is he went to the Grumpy Cafe, and you'll see that before he goes to the Grumpy Cafe, he checks in there using his iPhone. He gets a map of where the Grumpy Cafe is. Once he shows up, he goes in and says, "Hey, my name's Yoni, and I'm going to have this coffee." The person at the cash register sees that Yoni is already checked into the Grumpy Cafe, and just go ahead and charges his app. Later, what you see is Yoni then has the purchase show up on his in his Cardcase app. I guess the guy at the Grumpy Cafe was a little bit grumpy, and Yoni gave him a little bit of a tip, which you can see here, and finally he approves the final amount. And this is, of course, the fun slide of Yoni having purchased his coffee and cookie. So anyway, that's a really interesting, we really like the Cardcase app because, again, back to that idea of convenience, it makes it super easy to go in somewhere, never take out your wallet, just use your smartphone and pay for something. So we'll leave a few takeaways up here, but in conclusion, smartphones and mobile technology are becoming the new kind of cash. And even innovations made in the retail sector by Apple 10 years ago are now available to almost all merchants and consumers. So we think SMS technology and smartphone apps like the ones we've showed here today are going to become even more popular in 2011, and perhaps one day soon will replace cash as the most common way for people to exchange value. I want to thank you so much for tuning into this edition of the Webby University, and thanks to our sponsor, Vitamin T, for supporting today's episode and Webby Talks. Bye-bye.